You will need a screwdriver, an 11/16 wrench, cotton swabs, and a container for grease. Step 1. Remove brass pieces with 11/16 wrench. Remove the 2 brass pieces, setting them aside for later use. Step 2. Remove the heat sinks from plastic housing. Step 3. Remove 2 copper clips from heat sinks. During this step, it may be necessary to use a screwdriver to help you pry the 2 copper clips from the heat sinks. Step 4. Remove lamp from heat sinks. If the heat sinks are holding the lamp too tightly, use a screwdriver to pry open the heat sinks and twist them until they come loose. Step 5. If your lamp has a cooling ring, remove it and save it for later. Otherwise, proceed to Step 6. Step 6. Remove dried grease from heat sinks. Remove grease from the inner ring with alcohol and a cotton swab. Step 7. Wipe heat sinks clean of excess alcohol and grease. Step 8. Remove yellow and red caps from new lamp. Step 9. Open grease and put it into a small tray. Step 10. Apply a thin layer of grease to the anode heat sink. Using a cotton swab, apply a thin layer of grease to the inner ring of the anode heat sink, which you previously cleaned the old grease out of. Step 11. Repeat Step 10 for cathode heat sink. Step 12. Apply a thin layer of grease to the ring and the edge of the anode. It is important to grease only the ring and the edge of the anode, making sure not to use too much. Step 13. Place the anode end of the lamp into the anode heatsink. Make sure that the lamp is entirely seated in the heatsink. It may be necessary to use a screwdriver to pry open the heatsink to make this happen. Step 14. Apply a thin layer of grease to the front ring of the lamp. Like before, it is important to only use a thin layer of grease for the ring of the lamp. Step 15. If you previously removed a cooling ring from your old lamp, we will now place it onto our new one. If not, proceed to Step 16. Step 16. Place window side of lamp into cathode heatsink. Using a screwdriver, pry open the cathode heatsink, aligning it to the anode heatsink. Step 17. Align the holes on the heatsinks and replace the copper clips. Twist the heatsinks until the 3 holes are in a straight line. Once they are, turn the heatsinks 180 degrees, replacing the 2 copper clips that were removed previously. Make sure that the clips sit snug against the heatsinks. Step 18. Place the heatsinks into the housing, align the holes, and replace the brass pins. Make sure that the holes on the heat sinks line up with the holes on the plastic housing. Also, ensure that the window end of the lamp is placed into the plastic housing so that the window is on the same end as the timer. The brass piece with the larger thread is for the anode side of the housing. Make sure that the anode side and the cathode side have the correct brass piece and tighten them by hand. Step 19. Tighten brass pins with 11/16 wrench. It is important to make sure that the pins are tight, but do not over-tighten. Your module has now successfully been relamped and ready to be put back into your device.